We live in a world that often confuses performance with intelligence. A fast tongue is seen as wisdom, loud confidence mistaken for truth, and decorated resumes paraded as proof of brilliance. But genuine intelligence doesn't shout. It moves in stillness. It doesn't need to dominate a room or win debates. Real intellect is subtle, measured, and intentional. It shows itself not through how often we speak, but through what we choose not to say. Every sentence we speak is a doorway. It either leads to deeper understanding or locks us behind ego. The truly wise know this. They guard their words as a warrior guards his weapon, because some phrases, though harmless on the surface, quietly damage our discipline, our mindset, and our ability to grow. Tonight, we examine those phrases, not to shame them, but to replace them with something stronger, something stoic, something lived. This isn't a lesson in rhetoric. This is a shift in perspective. A stoic man doesn't speak to prove himself. He speaks only when words serve the truth, and when no truth can be served, he embraces silence. This silence is not weakness. It is clarity held with strength. It is the conscious restraint that separates reactive minds from grounded ones. So before we speak, we must ask, does this bring clarity or just comfort? Phrase 1. I already know that. At first, it may sound confident, but more often, it conceals a fear of not knowing. It's a shield for the ego, not a sign of mastery. A truly intelligent man doesn't need to declare what he knows. He's not afraid to revisit ideas, even familiar ones, because he knows that growth often hides in repetition, in hearing the same truth through a new lens. Knowledge is never finished. It is refined. Every time we say, I know that, we close the door to curiosity. We reject the chance to hear something from a deeper angle or catch a nuance we missed before. The Stoic Epictetus put it plainly. It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. That insight carries quiet brilliance, because the moment we stop reaching, we stop evolving. True intellect doesn't rest. It listens more than it speaks. The habit of constantly saying, I know, creates mental stagnation. It becomes a prison of certainty, where learning can't breathe. And when life changes or demands adaptation, the man who once thought he knew enough finds himself unprepared. He is anchored to old patterns, blind to the need for change. But the wise man holds his knowledge lightly. He remains open, aware that every situation might hold a lesson still unrevealed. So next time your mind whispers, I already know this, pause. Ask yourself, what if there's more here than I've seen before? What if this moment has a layer I've never explored? Curiosity is not weakness. It is the fuel of growth. When others stop listening, the intelligent man leans in. He searches for depth, not recognition. And that discipline of quiet curiosity gives him an edge others never see coming. Phrase 2, that's just how I am. It may sound like acceptance, but in truth, it's a subtle surrender. It signals a refusal to grow, a choice to stop trying. When someone says this, they are often defending a habit they are unwilling to change. But personality isn't destiny. It's a pattern shaped by experience. And patterns, no matter how deep, can be broken. Intelligence lies in recognizing that you are never finished. The Stoics believed in self-transformation. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, said, man conquers the world by conquering himself. That's not poetry. That's a call to action. The disciplined man doesn't say, this is just who I am. He asks, who am I becoming? Every weakness faced is an opportunity. Every flaw can be reshaped. The intelligent man knows he has the power to rewrite his behavior one choice at a time. Saying, that's just how I am, locks you into permanence. It turns anger into identity. It gives fear a home. It treats bad habits like destiny. But the Stoic doesn't hide behind such excuses. He takes accountability. He accepts that change is uncomfortable, but necessary. He understands that small corrections, made daily, can redirect an entire life. He doesn't wait for transformation. He builds it. Identity isn't something a wise man defends. It's something he quietly reshapes through action. Not once, but constantly, daily, even hourly, through choices no one sees. Redesigning yourself doesn't mean rejecting your past. It means refusing to be confined by it. You can honor your struggles without surrendering to them. You can say, yes, I've always reacted this way, and still choose to rise above it. That's not denial. That's discipline rooted in self-awareness. So ask yourself, is the version of you who says, that's just how I am, someone you want to be 5 years from now? 10? Would the strongest version of you ever utter those words? Or would he view his flaws like a sculptor views raw stone, rough, unpolished, but full of potential? You owe no apology for being imperfect, but you owe yourself the effort to evolve beyond those imperfections. That evolution begins where self-description ends. Too many men build their identity around wounds they never chose. They confuse pain with personality and mistake defense mechanisms for authenticity. But being yourself isn't a destination. It's a question you must answer again and again to behavior. When you feel the urge to justify your habits by saying, that's just who I am, stop. Ask instead, who do I want to become? And more importantly, what would that man choose in this moment? Because staying the same is easy. Excusing weakness is simple. But becoming who you were meant to be, who you know you could be, takes endurance. It requires Stoic strength, the quiet, relentless kind that transforms not just how you act, but how you see the world. A strong man doesn't settle for being defined by his past. He uses it as material, not limitation. His identity isn't fixed, it's forged. These 3 words often disguise themselves as strength, but more often than not, they're hiding fear. A man who says, I don't care, is rarely indifferent. He's usually wounded, exhausted, or afraid to admit how much he truly does care. The phrase is a shield, a brittle one, built to keep vulnerability at bay. But true strength doesn't require denial. It requires balance, feeling deeply but responding wisely. There's a critical difference between not reacting and not caring. The first is emotional mastery. The second is emotional suppression. One is strength, the other, evasion. A Stoic doesn't declare detachment. He practices it. He doesn't shout his indifference. He simply doesn't flinch. While others perform apathy to appear untouchable, the intelligent man quietly sorts what deserves his attention and what doesn't. Saying, I don't care about everything is intellectual laziness. It's the language of man overwhelmed, trying to mask confusion with coldness. But the Stoic doesn't run from his emotions. He studies them. He watches them arise, learns their nature, then chooses a response aligned with clarity, not chaos. He doesn't suppress feeling. He refines it. And in doing so, he doesn't become numb. He becomes discerning. And here's the paradox. If you truly didn't care, you wouldn't need to say it. Indifference, real indifference, doesn't speak. It doesn't seek validation. It doesn't need to convince. The moment you feel the urge to declare detachment, you should pause and ask, am I convincing others or myself? Because performance is not peace, and silence, not dismissal, is often the sign of true composure. The wiser man recognizes the bait, the provocation, the insult, the temptation to respond, and he chooses not to react with coldness, but with clarity. He says, this does not serve me, and moves on without drama, without resentment. This is detachment in practice, not disconnection, but inner command. As Epictetus taught, what matters is not what happens, but how you choose to respond. So next time you're tempted to say, I don't care, step back. Ask yourself honestly, am I avoiding the discomfort of caring too much? Am I mistaking avoidance for control? The world today idolizes indifference, but the truly intelligent man chooses differently. He cares, but selectively, deliberately, and without chaos. He doesn't declare what doesn't matter. He lives by what does. When you're tempted to say, I don't care, ask yourself, are you expressing detachment or hiding from disappointment? Are you demonstrating clarity or just numbing yourself to pain? Let your silence speak for you. True peace doesn't broadcast itself. It radiates in how you carry yourself, how you make decisions, how you resist being drawn into chaos. The intelligent man doesn't need to say he's at peace. He simply lives in a way that proves it. And that is real Stoic strength. Not coldness, but calm. Not indifference, but discipline. The wise man understands that nothing outside his control should have the power to disturb the sanctuary within. He doesn't react just because he feels something. He chooses response over impulse. And when provoked, he doesn't explode or retreat. He simply moves on grounded, unshaken. That's how detachment becomes a skill, not a statement. It sounds humble, even well-intentioned. But "I'll try" often conceals a subtle avoidance. It cushions the risk of failure, giving you a mental exit door if things don't go your way. It creates the illusion of effort without the burden of commitment, a half step, a half promise. But the intelligent man doesn't walk through life with half-closed doors. He chooses yes or no, not maybe. "I'll try" is hesitation dressed as humility, and hesitation weakens alignment. The Stoic doesn't aim to try being disciplined. He becomes disciplined. He understands that mastery isn't built on effort alone, but on decisiveness. Every moment presents a choice: act or avoid, engage or excuse. As Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Not try, but do. The truth is, "I'll try" gives your ego protection. If you fail, you weren't fully committed. If you succeed, you appear modest. But the cost is clarity. The wise man doesn't protect his pride. He builds structure for his soul. He doesn't flirt with discipline. He marries it. In Stoic thought, blurry action is a trap. You either commit or you don't. You either rise early, write the page, lift the weight, or you lie to yourself. People who live in "I'll try" are often stuck. The world moves past them while they wait for mood, luck, or timing to align. They trade responsibility for uncertainty. But the Stoic doesn't depend on luck. He depends on discipline. He knows it's not about feeling ready. It's about deciding anyway. Discipline for him isn't a mood. It's identity forged through repetition and recalibration. He may fall, yes, but he doesn't try again. He acts again. He reorients. He returns. Because in failure, he finds instruction, not permission to hesitate. That's why commitment matters. When you say, "I will," your mind focuses, your habits respond, your body follows. But when you say, "I'll try," everything weakens. You're no longer certain. You're hoping. And hope without action leads nowhere. So what's the Stoic alternative? Fewer words, stronger steps. Eliminate "try" unless it means you've already begun. Say "I will." Say "I am." Or say nothing, just move. Action speaks a language that excuses can't. It's the language of those who live with intent. In the end, your life won't be measured by your efforts to try, but by what you chose, committed to, and completed, even when it wasn't perfect. On the surface, it feels like relief, like you're finally off the hook. But the moment you hand away blame, you surrender something far greater: your power. A man who gives away responsibility becomes a captive of chaos, waiting for others to make things right. An intelligent man doesn't waste time assigning fault, not because he's always to blame, but because he's always in charge of his next move. This is a Stoic distinction. Blame looks backward. Responsibility looks forward. You may not have lit the fire, but it's still your house that's burning. You didn't choose the storm, but you decide how to steer through it. Waiting for apologies or fairness only binds you to conditions you can't control. As Epictetus said, don't demand things happen as you wish. Wish them to happen as they do, and you will go on well. That isn't weakness. That's power reclaimed. When you stop resisting what is, you start shaping what can be. The wise man doesn't shout at the sky about how unfair life is. He builds within the storm. He gains strength not despite difficulty, but because of it. When he hears "it's not my fault," he may agree, but he knows that agreement changes nothing if it doesn't move him forward. Fault won't make you stronger. Accountability will. The Stoic man owns his choices, his reactions, his mindset. Even when wronged, he looks inward before he looks outward. Not because he enjoys blame, but because he refuses to be controlled. There's quiet power in saying, "Maybe I didn't cause this, but I will be the one to fix it." That is the language of grounded leadership, of self-governance. True greatness often means carrying what others drop, acting even when it's not your mess, your responsibility, or your fault. The world is full of men waiting for fairness, for apologies, for someone to clean up the wreckage. But the Stoic man doesn't wait. Even when injustice finds him, he refuses to live as its victim. You'll never hear him say, "It's not my fault," with bitterness, because he's focused on what comes next. To the intelligent man, fault is secondary. Response is everything. Will you step back from difficulty or step into it with calm, determined strength? The answer to that question transforms pain into purpose. It reclaims the one thing no tragedy, no enemy, no history can take from you: your ability to choose. And that, above all, is the fire Stoicism teaches us to protect: responsibility as personal power. Few sentences extinguish potential faster than this one. "It's too late" sounds reasonable, mature, even realistic. But beneath that quiet tone lies a deeper truth: resignation, a silent pact with failure. It's the phrase we use when we want to bury a dream before giving it an honest chance to breathe. But the intelligent man knows, so long as breath remains, it is never too late. Time makes for a convenient scapegoat. It can't defend itself, and it's always moving forward. But watch closely. Two minds hear the same ticking clock. One panics, the other awakens. One hears a funeral bell, the other hears a drumbeat for action. Seneca didn't mourn time's passage. He warned against wasting it. "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire," he wrote. We delay, defer, and fantasize about someday, then recoil in regret when that day comes and we're unprepared. Then, to numb the sting of wasted time, we say, "It's too late." But the Stoic doesn't use the clock as an excuse. He doesn't measure his life by how much time he has left, but by how much intention he pours into what's right in front of him. Even in chaos, he finds his moment. Marcus Aurelius faced wars, plagues, betrayal, yet still carved time to write, to reflect, to improve. He never said, "It's too late to build discipline." He simply began. Character wasn't something he waited for. It was something he practiced daily, even in the darkest hours. That's what intelligent men understand. It's never too late to live with purpose. Every time you whisper "it's too late," you shrink your future to the size of your past. You quietly surrender your ability to change. But what if your next decision could shift everything? What if this exact moment, right now, held the power to turn the story around? The wise man doesn't ask if he's behind. He asks if he's ready to begin, and then he does, without announcement, without excuse.